50% of men experience hair loss before age 50. But why? Why do some men experience hair loss while others don't? Well, the typical answer to this question is genetics. The most recent research seems to indicate that men positive for a very specific androgen receptor gene are up to 2 times more likely to experience male pattern baldness in their lifetime. Men that are positive for this genetic SNP seem to be more sensitive to the hormone DHT, a hormone that is largely believed to initiate hair loss in men. However, this doesn't seem to be the entire story, as more recent research seems to suggest that genetics are only responsible for up to 60% of male pattern baldness cases. This has led researchers to conclude that male pattern baldness is only partly genetic and partly environmental. But what are those environmental factors? Well, one of these markers seems to be an elevation of the hormone DHT. When DHT binds to androgen receptors on the top of the head, it inhibits hair growth, eventually leading to quickened hair loss. The more DHT present in the tissue, the higher the rate of hair loss. But the ultimate question is why? What environmental factors are causing this elevation in DHT levels? Why do so many men that are genetically susceptible to hair loss not lose their hair? Well, these are some of the questions that we're going to be addressing in today's video, as well as some of the lifestyle factors that you can address in order to help slow and prevent the onset of male pattern baldness. So let's go ahead and dive right in. We will begin our journey today with a little lesson in physiology on the production and use of androgens in the body. Now, the 2 primary androgens in the human body are 1, testosterone, and 2, the lesser-known metabolite, DHT. Testosterone levels in the body are typically 20 times that of DHT, though DHT appears to be 3 times as potent when compared to testosterone. Now, the primary purpose of these hormones is to bring about primary and secondary male sex characteristics in men. These would include things like development of sexual organs, development of muscle tissue, regulation of sexual behavior, and development of other male sex characteristics. Now, when your body, through various mechanisms, recognizes either a drop in these androgens or an explicit need for them in the body, your brain begins the process of stimulating their production. This process begins in the hypothalamus, and when your hypothalamus detects a need for androgens in the body, it releases a hormone known as gonadotrophic releasing hormone, otherwise known as GnRH. Now, this GnRH then travels from the hypothalamus to the pituitary gland, where it stimulates the production and release of luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone then travels to the testicles, where it stimulates the Leydig cells of the testes to produce testosterone. Now, believe it or not, this is actually a highly simplified version of this process, as there are dozens of other enzymes and intermediate hormones that are involved in this process. However, this will suffice for our conversation today. Now, at this point, once testosterone is produced in the testes, one of 3 primary things can happen. One is that this testosterone can be metabolized into estrogen by the enzyme aromatase. This estrogen is then released into the bloodstream by the testes, where it is free to act on various tissues in the rest of the body. Now, the second thing that can happen to this testosterone is it can be bound to a protein known as sex hormone binding globulin. When this happens, SHBG transports this testosterone to various tissues in the body, where it can bind to androgen receptors and initiate its physiological response. Now, the third thing that can happen is that this testosterone can be converted into DHT by the enzyme 5-alpha reductase in the testicles. However, it is important to note here that very little of this process happens at a testicular level. Though some testosterone will be converted to DHT by the testes and then released into the bloodstream, this accounts for a very small percentage of total DHT production. 5-alpha reductase seems to be primarily distributed in other tissues such as the liver, brain, prostate, and skin, where it locally converts testosterone into DHT. Endogenous DHT is primarily the product of localized conversion of testosterone into DHT by 5-alpha reductase in very specific localized tissues. This is why DHT levels are so much higher in tissues that express 5-alpha reductase when compared to typical blood levels of DHT. The conversion of testosterone to DHT typically only happens in very specific tissues once testosterone reaches these tissues. This has led many researchers to rightly conclude that the primary driver of male pattern baldness, apart from genetic factors, is the localized overexpression of the 5-alpha reductase enzyme. However, the question still remains, why? If genetics only account for up to 60% of male pattern baldness, why are the other 40% experiencing this 5-alpha reductase overexpression? So, to answer this question, let's dive a little bit deeper. Now, when you look at the typical hormonal profile of someone with premature onset male pattern baldness, you will notice a very clear pattern that goes far beyond isolated DHT levels. The typical hormonal profile of someone with male pattern baldness typically looks something like this. They are typically low in levels of testosterone, thyroid hormone, sex hormone binding globulin, and follicle stimulating hormone, while at the same time having high levels of DHT, prolactin, cortisol, thyroid releasing hormone, insulin-like growth factor 1, and inflammatory markers. But the biggest question here by far is, what is the common denominator? What type of lifestyle factors are leading to this type of hormone profile? Well, lucky for us, we have some good research that is pointing us in a couple of different directions. One is a lack of sleep, 2, obesity, 3, sleep deprivation, 4, stress, with the single unifying factor being uncontrolled blood sugar. The apex of the video, uncontrolled blood sugar. Now, interestingly enough, the hormone markers that are typically present in individuals experiencing androgenic alopecia are almost identical to what you would expect to see in someone with uncontrolled blood sugar. What appears to be going on is that as we age, these lifestyle factors seem to accumulate enough to eventually suppress testosterone production. Once this happens, the body appears to upregulate the expression of 5-alpha reductase in order to maintain proper androgen receptor stimulation. However, the production of this DHT further suppresses testosterone production. Now, high blood sugar also stimulates the production and release of thyroid-releasing hormone, which stimulates the pituitary to do two things. One is to obviously stimulate the production of thyroid hormone, but it also seems to stimulate the production and release of prolactin, which consequently further suppresses testosterone production. And the same trend holds true with cortisol, IGF-1, and inflammatory markers. Every hormone that you see elevated in subjects with androgenic alopecia, you also see elevated in individuals with uncontrolled blood sugar. And all of these hormones, to one degree or another, seem to independently initiate hair loss. Now, the biggest and final question that we might ask here is, what can we do about this? Well, the answer is surprisingly simple, yet not easy. Control your blood sugar. This appears to be one of the most effective ways to slow and even reverse male pattern baldness. Now, there are a handful of supplements that you can also take in order to slow the progress of male pattern baldness. However, because of the intricacy of this system, as well as some of the possible side effects that come along with 5-alpha reductase inhibitors, I am going to dedicate an entire video on natural methods to slow, prevent, and reverse hair loss naturally. But other than that, guys, make sure you're watching out for that next video here in the next week or so, and also make sure to check out the description for any of the free supplement guides that I've got on my website. And other than that, I will see you guys next time. Thanks so much.